We are, all of us, the residents of a swiftly shrinking globe, where what was once local is fast becoming global, and our decisions and opinions resonate well beyond our own borders. Join me each week, your host, Al Zucaro, from the epicenter of the Western Hemisphere, Boca Raton, Florida, in sunny South Palm Beach County, for a pointed look at politics, immigration, culture, and what it means to be a citizen of the world. Well, good evening, folks, and welcome back to Citizens of the World. Tonight is the last time we're going to spend any major portion of our show with regards to the election 2012 cycle. We're going to spend a little time talking about local politics by finishing up our interview with Tom Gustafson, the Democratic challenger who was unsuccessful in the race for the Florida House seat in District 89. And we are going to look at a video that I uncovered on YouTube that I thought was quite interesting that shows the results of 2012 elections to teens and to elders and demonstrates conclusively how we have to do a lot of work to help people understand what the right to vote really entails and the obligation it means to people to learn their own ways. As you know, the show is brought to you by Fugazi International Travel. That's www.fugazitravel.com on the web, and we thank them for their sponsorship. We'll be right back. Well, folks, we're back again, and we are lucky enough to have Tom Gustafson to sit with us and chat a little bit more about some of the issues that are relevant to the communities that he attempted to become the representative of and that many of us live in. The demographic of the community that you were running for, District 89, started in Fort Lauderdale and runs the coast all the way up to around Riviera Beach, maybe even a little bit north of Riviera Beach.
Starts in Boca.
Starts in Boca. I thought it started in Broward County.
No, that was Maria's district. The House district starts in Boca.
Starts in Boca, runs all the way up to Riviera Beach. All coastal communities, all communities of great significance, particularly from a hurricane point of view, particularly from an insurance point of view. We watch what's going on the television now up in Staten Island and on the Jersey coast, and we were spared a major hit. We haven't been spared in the past. We have issues in the state with regards to insurance. You are very educated on the facts with regards to citizens. Tell us where we go with that and what you think the best approach will be, although we know that you can't affect it until you run again.
Well, first, we can all be effective if we're informed citizens. And along with a bunch of other people in Palm Beach County, we're all informed citizens, and we have a stake in what the future holds. Now, here's the facts. You mentioned earlier opinions. I try to stay away from opinions as much as I can and try to deal with the facts and then try to draw a conclusion from the facts that at least addresses what the facts seem to indicate. Now, the facts are that we're going to get strange weather. That's the facts. You can call it climate change. You can call it sea level rise. You can call it ocean health. The ocean's changing. To say it isn't changing defies all the scientific information available in the world. Now, what's causing it and what we could do to overcome it, maybe that's a little foggy yet, and we don't really have all those answers, and I'm not trying to pin it on anybody in terms of who caused it. I think mankind might have had something to do with it. It could be totally natural, but it doesn't really matter. If you're sitting next to the ocean and it's changing, it's going to affect you. And so you just have to say, well, let's get out in front of the curve a little bit. If there is going to be changing weather, if there's going to be a changing ocean, what can we do as occupants of the lands on the ocean, on the Lake Worth Lagoon, to protect ourselves, to protect our investments, to make sure that things turn out for us okay and for our offspring? So you just can't assume a benign ocean that's just exactly the way it is yesterday, and that it'll always be calm, and that there won't be storm surge and there won't be sea level rise, because all the science would indicate it's just a matter of time before some very bad things happen to a South Florida community. Now, we know it's happened before. We've had Andrew. We just had Isaac. Isaac flooded us in the western counties, but remember, the flooding occurred after 100 years of sea level rise.
Right.
Now, by the way, I do want to say there are those that disagree with sea level rise, and I respect their opinions. I just asked them to go examine the GRACE satellite, which is up in the sky. It's measuring the ice melt. It's measuring the temperature. It is able to calculate sea level rise. There are tidal gauges that are in the water that have been in place for 100 years in Key West and up and down the coast. They clearly indicated 9-inch sea level rise in 100 years. That's just math. That's just calculations. And the GRACE satellite seems to indicate it's accelerating. So when you factor in just the science, there's going to be a problem. When you factor in Isaac, you know that we just didn't flood. We flooded with an extra 9 inches of seawater underneath it, which meant it was 9 inches higher than it otherwise would have been, which meant it stayed flooded longer. What we don't want to have is an event 30, 50 years from now that makes Katrina look like child's play. We don't want to have large sections of South Florida literally underwater and flooded for weeks and months at a time. We have time to actually prepare and minimize that risk. But we can't wish it away. We can't pray it away. We can't just pretend it doesn't end there. We have to address the facts and then build to the threat. If we're Japan, we ought to be able to think through how not to build reactors on the edge of the ocean where tsunamis hit. And if we do, what kind of barrier are we going to build? There is simply a physical world that you live in that you can't ignore. And if you ignore it, you ignore it at your peril.
How do you deal with the public when they deal in soundbite? And what you just said is a thesis that some experts would find interesting to explore. I mean, educating people to absorb what you just said and to help recognize that they have to fund this vis-a-vis taxes and public works is a chore that the legislature is doing a very poor job at. We are a soundbite community. We're a soundbite society.
Well, programs like this can start the discussion. One of the things I said in a letter to supporters and friends after the campaign was over is I was in a discussion with the district. I wasn't in a campaign. I was trying to discuss with the district important issues of how to build resilient infrastructure and communities built to last. And so for me, it's a conversation that you have to have with people who live in South Florida and say carefully, what can we do? I'm not advocating taxes. I'm happy with the tax base we have today. What I am suggesting is that if you can grow the economy, if you can increase property values, then you have a funding mechanism to do the work necessary to preserve those property values. Now, it may be that our peninsula that stretches down to Homestead in southeast Florida gets a little more narrow. It could be it needs a little bit more concrete to shore it up. It could be that occasionally you got a bridge every now and then. But it's not impossible. In fact, it's eminently easy to do if you look at a 100-year yardstick. And if you ignore it, then like the Japanese, you wake up one day and a hurricane or a tsunami has destroyed a good portion of your nation. So what you can't do is ignore a threat. It isn't even businessmen-like to do it. I'm just saying, on just a practical level, you can't just enjoy the sunshine and pretend that nothing changes, when in fact, if nothing else, Hurricane Sandy proved things are changing. Yes. These are odd times, and you have to deal with odd weather. And odd weather, unfortunately, could be in the form of a big hurricane with a lot of flooding that we could prepare for if we prepare ahead of time, but which we cannot fix if we do not.
Let's talk a little bit about insurance. Citizens is the major insurer in the state of Florida, particularly the coastal communities. A lot of people are talking about catastrophic insurance. Define that for me.
Well, after Andrew, the hurricane damages were so severe that the national insurance companies abandoned us. So the legislature got together and appropriately developed a catastrophic fund. Well, the catastrophic fund is a mechanism to spread the risk statewide so that even if a hurricane hits Key West, and although there may be carriers there that have an exorbitant amount of risk that they've taken on, you can spread that risk through the reinsurance capacity of the CAT fund. The CAT fund, in essence, is a state-run reinsurance, an insurer of other insurers, and it can spread that load across the state of Florida. Now, there's those who don't like spreading the load, and I say, well, since most of the tax dollars come from the coastal communities, let's not spread the sales tax dollars around. Let's just keep them in the coastal communities, and then we got all the money we need. And they say, oh no, we have to take the state money to Tallahassee, add your sales, and we're going to distribute it to everybody. I said, okay, then distribute the risk too. Because there's risk and there's profit, and they ought to go together. And it's not an argument that's made. It's an argument that's, quite frankly, abandoned, and it is somewhat distorted by the interest of different carriers who make a lot of money charging exorbitant rates. I want a domestic carrier of strength that keeps the out-of-state companies behaving themselves. There's nothing wrong with insurance companies, but they need to have a fair rate, and they need to pay their claims on time and provide good service. And they can't have us at a disadvantage simply because we live, in our case, in a somewhat riskier community because of the ocean than maybe normal. But it's also very lucrative if you keep that community actively engaged in the business of making money.
Campaigns are always difficult, and they are long and they are tiring. So I'm not going to pressure you today to tell me what the future holds, but it would be a loss to the state of Florida if your voice were lost. I don't think that will ever happen. I'd like to see you run again. I thank you very much for taking the time today. And how do people stay in touch with you now that the campaign is over?
Well, my email's still up. It's tom@gustafson2012.com. I have a personal email, and if I take down the more public email, I'll let everybody know that emails me what my private email is. But I've decided that I'm going to keep right now the email up. I might keep the web page up, and most of it is just to say, here's some content. Let's have a discussion about what it means, so that we don't
go continue to publish material.
You made earlier reference. I published it when I was in academia. I'm not sure if publishing now makes the most sense. I want to see some action. I'm not sure how to accomplish it, but I'm happy now to move from thinking about it, or even talking about it, or even campaigning about it, to look for people who want to act on it.
The chair for the Democratic Party is available.
I was never the most politically astute person in the world, and I think the leader of the Democratic Party has to be a partisan, and I think I'm a bipartisan.
Gotcha. Tom, thank you very much for coming in. As you know, this will air. I'll get you a copy of the tape so you can use it for your own pleasure. And it's been a pleasure to know you. And I've known you for 30 years, so we're going to continue to know one another for a long time.
Pleasure.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, folks, thank you very much. We're going to close the show with the little video that talks about the attitudes of both the teens and the elders in this last segment. And then I promise you, next week we go back to the original format of this show, which is to talk about immigration as an economic generator, to talk about culture as a precursor to commerce, and to talk about Boca Raton as the epicenter of the Western Hemisphere. Thank you very much, and good night.
I welcome you to the first of the 2012 presidential debates.
It's about to go down.
I always wonder what they say when they get close together like that.
I bet they're just like saying like X big and like there was like stupid things.
Question is, does anybody out there think that the big problem we had is that there was too much oversight and regulation?
I'm just saying, yeah. I'm just saying, yeah.
Look, we have to have regulation involved.
I'm not big on politics,
That's
I'm
why
sorry.
I have regulation, but I wouldn't designate 5 banks as too big to fail. An economic crisis at the kitchen table, and spent his energy and passion for 2 years fighting for Obamacare. If you repeal Obamacare, and I have become fond of this term, Obamacare.
I'm going to roll up my sleeves on this one. I'm getting sick and tired of hearing that guy after 4 years of nothing.
Welcome, President Barack Obama and Governor Mitt Romney.
In what new ways do you intend to rectify the inequalities in the workplace?
The first bill I signed.
Blah, 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 blah.
As I was serving as governor of my state.
Oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah.
Pull together a cabinet. All the applicants seem to be men.
He just looks vindictive and evil.
Fine folks, and they brought us whole binders full of women.
Sir, you are not Bill Clinton.
I'm not a binder.
And I took offense with the flexible time because I'm the guy who always fixes dinner.
When he said
behind closed doors that 47% of the country consider themselves victims?
He was talking about the people you place on welfare, ding-dong man.
By the way, it's true, because 47% are on welfare.
Hopefully advance their own dreams, but also this country's dreams.
Obama's such a cool guy. Like,
I
he's
believe
just like...
the country succeeds.
We welcome President Barack Obama and Governor Mitt Romney.
Our Navy is smaller now than any time since 1917. That's unacceptable to me.
You mentioned the Navy, for example. And then we have
And now here he gets in his cheap remarks here.
Well, Governor, we also have fewer horses and bayonets because the nature of our military has changed.
We need strong leadership.
That's right.
I'd like to be that leader with your support.
No.
And I ask for your vote.
No.
I'd like to be the next president of the United States to
Amen. You're going to be, too.
We all together
He scares me.
maintain America as the hope of the earth.
You've now heard 3 debates, months of campaigning, and way too many TV commercials. We've been through tough times.
There was a funny little laugh.
Back because of our character. I will fight for your families, and I will work every single day to make sure that America continues to be the greatest nation on earth.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Obama.
I leave you with the words of my mom, who said,
Go vote.
Go vote. Makes you feel big and strong.
Oh my God, I hate them both.
Obama.
Vote conservative, vote early, and vote often.
Do you know who those two men were? Who are those guys?
I don't. Barack and Mitt Romney.
President Barack Obama. The other one was Governor Mitt Romney.
Barack Obama and the Mitt Twit. Mitt Romney and Barack Hussein Obama.
I don't think I know who those two men really are because I don't think we are allowed to know.
And had you watched any of the debates this year?
I feel really, really bad, but I didn't.
This year I didn't watch.
Damn LOL is much more interesting.
Yep, all 3.
Everyone.
Oh, yes. I love them.
I was watching people tweet about the debate.
I just got kind of busy, and then, you know, obviously those are long debates.
I seen it, but then SpongeBob was on at the same time, so I turned to SpongeBob.
In a recent Kids React episode, we showed campaign commercials to the kids. One of the kids said that it's like they're fighting over a toy. That's good. One said that they do it because attacking each other is the only way you can win an election.
He's pretty much right.
Another kid said that sure, it's evil, but that politics are evil.
Politics are evil. I agree with the kid. The kid is very smart. I'd vote for him if he was ready for office.
So what do you think about the fact that children today are saying things like that?
That's not good.
Kids are little. They're not stupid. And they're seeing it for what it really is, which is, you know, the age-old, time-honored political tradition of mudslinging.
It's kind of ridiculous because that's like the main role model. That's the president of the United States. That's what everyone wants to be when they're like a little kid. And to think that that's how they perceive our president or maybe our future president, it's kind of mind-blowing.
Do you like President Obama?
I like him as many people